revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. One choice, one word, and an empire can crumble. For Caitlin Clark, revenge wasn't posting tweets, clapping back in interviews, or throwing shade on social media. Her revenge was devastatingly simple. She said no.no to Geno Auriemma.no to UConn's legacy.no to the $1 million offer that came crawling back years later.
Like I said earlier, they actually had odds that, she was like third or fourth in the betting odds to be MVP of the WNBA. That's such a slap in the face to every WNBA player. It's unbelievable, right?
On paper, it looked crazy. Who turns down over $1 million for 8 weeks of basketball? But this wasn't just a contract, it was a lifeline for a man who once dismissed her, belittled her, and treated her like an afterthought. When Clark rejected it, she wasn't just passing on a paycheck. She humbled the man who never thought he could be humbled.
Part about new fans, they have no perspective. There's no context. So they just say ridiculous nonsense.
This story is bigger than basketball. It isn't about stats, assists, or trophies, it's about power. For decades, Geno Auriemma was the gatekeeper of women's basketball. He decided who mattered, who got the spotlight, and who faded into obscurity. But Caitlin Clark flipped the script. She didn't need his approval, his program, or his checkbook. She built her empire without him, and when he finally reached out, she turned him away with quiet authority. I don't need you. You need me. Every revenge story starts with a mistake. Geno's mistake wasn't a bad play or a bad timeout, it was arrogance. Before Clark was the face of the sport, before the sold-out arenas and the record-shattering TV ratings, she was just a kid with a dream. She has admitted openly, UConn was the dream school. The dynasty. The mountaintop. When her recruitment came, the path seemed obvious. The most electrifying talent of her generation teaming up with the most legendary recruiter the game had ever seen. But the call never came. Geno never picked up the phone. Never called her parents. Barely sent a message through her AAU coach, and it wasn't an oversight, it was a choice. UConn had Paige Bueckers locked in, and Geno didn't want 2 point guards. Fine. But then came the insult. Geno suggested that if Clark really wanted UConn, she should have called him. Think about that. The coach, famous for spotting once-in-a-generation talent early, decided Caitlin Clark wasn't worth the effort and then blamed a teenager for not chasing him. That wasn't just a recruiting miss. It was disrespect. The kind you never forget. So Clark filed it away quietly. If Geno didn't believe in her, she'd go somewhere that did. She chose Iowa, a school with no dynasty banners, no mystique, no glow of greatness. To outsiders, it looked like a consolation prize. But for Clark, it was liberation. At Iowa, she wasn't Paige's shadow. She wasn't Geno's afterthought. She was the recruit. The program's centerpiece. And from the moment she stepped on the court, she rewrote the script. Her logo threes weren't just shots, they were statements. Her sold-out arenas weren't just crowds, they were proof. Her record-breaking TV ratings weren't flukes, they were receipts. Every bucket, every highlight, every record screamed, "You missed this." Meanwhile, Geno doubled down. Instead of humility, he leaned into arrogance. He dismissed her as just a kid playing like she was in the driveway. He kept tethering her rise to Paige Bueckers, as if to remind the world that everything still revolved around UConn. But ordinary players don't sell out Madison Square Garden. Ordinary players don't drag the WNBA into mainstream relevance. Ordinary players don't cost you millions. Geno had shut the door when Caitlin Clark knocked. He thought she'd fade away. Instead, she became the biggest name women's basketball had ever seen, and she did it without him. And when he finally circled back, contract in hand, Clark didn't gloat, she didn't.
Delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning.
She didn't rage. She just said no, and that single word cost him more than any championship loss ever could. Geno couldn't help himself. Anytime Caitlin Clark's name came up, he dragged her back into Paige comparisons. If Clark was fearless, so was Paige. If Clark connected with fans, so did Paige. It wasn't random, it was strategy.
Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening.
By tethering Clark's rise to his own players, Geno kept himself in the story, but backhanded compliments wear thin. Fans noticed. Analysts noticed. Other coaches noticed. They saw through the act. Clark didn't need qualifiers. She was drawing bigger crowds than some NBA teams, breaking records the sport had never seen, and rewriting the entire conversation around women's basketball. Still, Geno couldn't let go. And eventually, the mask slipped. In June 2024, during an interview on The Dan Patrick Show, Geno crossed the line. He didn't just question Clark, he went after her fans. He called them delusional. Said they didn't understand the game. Even claimed they were damaging women's basketball. What had they done? Believed she could finish top 4 in MVP voting as a rookie. Millions of new fans had just discovered women's basketball because of Caitlin Clark. Kids were camping out to meet her. Families were buying jerseys. Casual fans were tuning in for the first time ever. And Geno's response wasn't gratitude, it was insult. Instead of celebrating the new wave, he mocked it. This wasn't coaching analysis. This wasn't objective critique. This was personal. A direct shot at the lifeblood of Clark's movement, the very people who carried women's basketball into the mainstream. And because he's Geno Auriemma, people listened. Which made it worse. He wasn't just underestimating the fans, he was underestimating Clark. Saying the hype wasn't real, that the success wasn't sustainable, that one day he'd be proven right. But here's the twist, he wasn't right. Not even close. Clark didn't clap back. She didn't rant on social media. She didn't need to. Her answer came where it mattered most. On the court, she won Rookie of the Year, she made All-WNBA First Team. And when the MVP votes were counted, she finished exactly 4th, just like her delusional fans predicted. That prediction Geno laughed, it became reality. And with it, his credibility crumbled. Clark's revenge wasn't loud. It was silent, surgical, relentless. Every logo 3, every crossover, every assist became proof. By the time the awards were handed out, there was no debate. She silenced him without ever speaking his name.
Now, there's a lot of investors in this league. One investor, been trying to keep quiet about, his investment in the league ever since his comments that he made about a young rookie. Pretty much, had him in the headlines for about a month and a half. That is Geno Auriemma, dog. I'm here to tell you, he's part owner of this league.
But Geno wasn't done talking. He kept finding ways to bring her name up, praising her on one hand, minimizing her on the other. The more he talked, the clearer it became. Caitlin Clark was living rent-free in his head. Then came the last card he had left, money enter unrivaled, a new 3-on-3 women's league backed by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, with Geno deeply involved behind the scenes. The league had ambition, funding, but it didn't have what it truly needed, a face. That face had to be Caitlin Clark. Reports confirmed the league offered Clark over $1 million for just 8 weeks, one of the richest deals ever in women's basketball. The same man who never called her in high school was now begging her to save his league. The man who said her hype wasn't real was now trying to cash in on it. The coach who mocked her fans now needed those same fans to stream his games. The irony was almost too perfect.
Well, look like Geno Auriemma could be the reason why Caitlin Clark is definitely not joining the unrivaled 3-on-3 basketball.
This wasn't just business. This was personal. If Geno landed Clark, he could rewrite history. He could claim her success was still tied to him, to his system, to his empire, but Clark wasn't fooled. When that contract hit her desk, she didn't see opportunity, she saw a test.
They've tried to do everything they could to make the most of the situation. They tried to make the most of Caitlin Clark not playing by hinting everything and basically making people think that Caitlin Clark was going to play.
Her answer? One word. No excuses. No explanations. No hesitation. Just no, and that no was louder than every interview Geno had ever done. She didn't need his money, his platform, or his approval. The same man who brushed her aside now needed her, and she declined. Quietly. Gracefully. Brutally, without Clark, Unrivaled lost its magnet, its credibility, its hype. The $1 million offer wasn't a power move, it was an admission of weakness, and when she walked away, the whole project deflated before it could even launch. Her fans knew exactly what happened. Social media lit up with laughter. Geno got clowned for thinking Caitlin Clark would ever bail him out after years of disrespect, and Clark? She didn't even break a sweat. No rants. No victory lap. Just silence, and silence can be the loudest answer of all, because here's the truth, Geno's era is over. The gatekeepers no longer control the game. Caitlin Clark didn't just dethrone him, she burned the throne to the ground. For decades, Geno and the old guard decided who mattered. But Clark proved players can build their own empires. They don't need permission. They don't need validation. They are the power now, and with one word, no, Caitlin Clark changed the game forever.